there is a certain psychology involved, which I try and leave to the driver, but it is important, you know.
Because what I've learnt from Bart, as you said, with your engineering thing, is learning about more so the car than the driver. Do you know what I mean? That's why people are saying, "Oh, Dan, you're a better driver now." But that's because Bart's put into me in my head. You got to learn about the car, then about yourself.
You need to learn what you're looking for, why you're looking for it, and also you need to be able to drive it to the point where it's not happening too fast for you.
Yeah.
That you can put a certain amount of brain aside and analyse why you're doing what you're doing. Right? Why did I do? Why did I come out of the throttle there? Why did I turn the steering wheel that way? Why did I, why do I turn at the rate I do, for example? Why am I, why have I got the brake balance where I have? If I, if I learn it at the back, I might be able to make it steer better. I might not have to then heave on the steering wheel. There's a million little bits and pieces to learn. That
Go! And you're doing it, he's in! That's a massive crash, and it's happened immediately! This is amazing! Big shot, and it's lights out, and away we go!
if it's happening too fast for a guy, he's not going to be able to tell you what's going on with the car anyway. He's going to tell you what he's doing in as a reaction to what the problem is, not necessarily what the problem is.
So that's kind of what I do with Bart, and then Bart has to. Well, lucky I've got Julian there, who's a good young engineer, Julian Peruzic, right? But he has to work out them because I'm telling Bart as a driver and a driver coach, right? And then I've got Julian's kind of like trying to decipher, and same with Bart because he's got the engineering. It's kind of it's what you're saying. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah, it takes a while to get the tune in the wavelength.
Yeah,
it's not a 5-minute thing.
Yeah,
to understand, and it's there is a certain psychology involved, which I try and leave to the driver, but it is important,
Because what I've learnt from Bart, as you said, with your engineering thing, is learning about more so the car than the driver. Do you know what I mean? That's why people are saying, "Oh, Dan, you're a better driver now." But that's because Bart's put into me in my head. You got to learn about the car, then about yourself.
You need to learn what you're looking for, why you're looking for it, and also you need to be able to drive it to the point where it's not happening too fast for you.
Yeah,
that you can put a certain amount of brain aside and analyse why you're doing what you're doing. Right? Why did I come out of the throttle there? Why did I turn the steering wheel that way? Why did I, why do I turn at the rate I do, for example? Why am I, why have I got the brake balance where I have? If I, if I learn it at the back, I might be able to make it steer better. I might not have to then heave on the steering wheel. There's a million little bits and pieces to learn that, It's easy if you've got data because you look through it, but it's not the data. You need to find out why the bloke did it. What's the reason?
Yeah.
And that's why I always say the driver's the best bloke to read the data because he knows why the squiggly lines go where they do because he's made them go there.
Yeah.
The squiggly lines are a history lesson. They're not predictive. They're reactive.
Yeah.
This is what happened. It's not this is why it happened, which is what you need to know. You need to know why it happened, not what happened.
Yeah, that's what Bart's always looking at with you. Like he looks at, for example, an example is his feet. Why is certain reactions happening? Then looking at the fitness of the feet, and then going by, and then asking Dan, well, what do you think you're doing because it's your body, and trying to understand.
See, I've got flat feet, so he's trying to work around my flat feet, and my feet doesn't want to. I can't heel toe properly. So my foot literally just stops. I could just jam.
Keep in mind, I don't do that either. I do both sides of my foot.
Yeah.
I actually don't put my heel over. Heel and toe for me is a misnomer.
So when you were racing, did you heel and toe or did you just drive like
I did both sides of my foot.
Okay.
I'm fussy about the pedal height.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to brake, then just
oh, I get it.
I don't blip it, right?
Yeah.
I just lean on it. Because if you blip it, you end up with the spikes in the brake pressure, which makes more action, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
If you get the pedals in the right place, you don't need to go brum, brum. You just need to go.
Yeah, right.
You only need to bring the engine up speed up to wherever you're going with the gear. You don't need a brum.
Yeah.
You need to,
Oh, so it's more calmer. Yes.
You can slide your foot across then, can't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just slide your foot off the brake onto the throttle or vice versa. With me?
I gotta ask because we've been here talking for a lovely chat, by the way. Before we end this podcast, I've got to ask, because you worked with Wayne Gardner, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was obviously a world motorcycle champion and MotoGP's on this weekend and yada, yada. But what was it like engineering him from a motorcycle? Obviously, you raced cycles, like with Elwyn and Bruce, to changing him to a car, because he was quite competitive in the supercar ranks. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's Wayne has got the ability. Right? He's got the gift.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
A supercar.
Yeah.
Would be a walk in the park, like walking your dog down the beach, compared to a bloody 500cc two-stroke, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah.
It's like, if you've ever seen the bike, it's tiny. Looks like a 125.
Yeah.
So to think you're going to jam 180 horsepower on this thing and ride it, it's mind-boggling. But he was very talented, but he was also probably overly self-sure of his ability to make a car work. So he would quite often drag you off into something, you know, like, and it tries your patience a bit, because you know we've done this already, you know, like we've come to a conclusion here. Let's move to the next bit, sort of thing. So,
would he fascinate over one part really? Was that what
we were at Oran Park one day, and we're moving the front ride height up and down a quarter of a turn.
Yeah,
right? On a strut car, that's a reasonable tune, but a quarter of a turn's probably a bit like Justin deck chairs on the Titanic. You probably need a good 3/4 of a turn, you know.
Yeah. And
this was going up and down, up and down. I'm getting all this. I'm like, and a guy who now's, if you look on the internet, you'll find real seats. Yeah. This is a guy called Vaughan Cartwright. He's in England. He does seat pours. Yeah. Right? But he makes seat frames and CNCs around there. Anyway, he was a chief mechanic, and he said, "You're getting over this." I said, "Look, for a start, you only need to go up and down twice, and you've come to conclusion. It's like 10 times starting to wear me down. Yeah. Like, test day's an expensive thing to do. Like, times, it's common to everybody. Yeah. All sorts of people got all different amounts of money, but they only still get 24 hours in a day, right? Yeah. So you don't need to waste time on something you already just did, right? Yeah. Okay, we've done it twice. I quite often do this thing 2 or 3 times if I'm not sure, right? So don't misunderstand. I don't do it once and I know. If I'm not sure, I'll quite often go backwards and forwards a couple of times if it's a simple one, to be sure. Okay, yeah, that's the story. Right, move along. Yeah. But this was going on for a while, right? And he's like, "You don't think you can taste that?" I said, "I think it's probably a little bit over the top, yeah." Yeah. So then we went to Bathurst for a touring car round, and the same guy put 100 newtons too much with his spring. Yeah. Right. And so instead of having 650s, we had 1200s in the back or something like that, right? Yeah. And like we're having a debrief, and he's calling me, and like, what? He said, "The rear springs are the wrong ones." I'm like, okay. So I said to the chief, "Is it a bit taily or anything?" And he's like, "Oh, maybe a little bit. Like this is twice as much rear spring rate, right? Yeah. This is not."
Oh, that's because he's used to the bikes.
It's not 650 to 700. This is 650 to 1200.
Yeah.
Right? This is
It's very, very different.
We had springs in 25-pound increments, right? Yeah. And keep in mind, we weren't long ago adjusting the front ride up and down a quarter of a turn. Yeah. So I'm like, Yeah. And I was, so I said it was different. And this guy said to me, "Well," so he thought it was maybe a smidgen taily, just put the right ones back in now. Yeah. And he's like, "You didn't tell him?" I'm like, "Well, it doesn't matter." Yeah. Like, and like next session, he said, "Oh, it's a little bit better." Yeah. I'm like, okay. So, yeah. Muffy is his nickname, Stud Muffin, right? Yeah. He's like, "You didn't pick it?" And I'm like, "Well, he picked it after I prodded him, but he didn't say out the debrief, 'Christ, this thing's that tailor, I can't deal with it,' which it must have been." Yeah. Right? He just
drove around it.
Used to riding this animal.
Yeah.
Right? You just deal with it, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, on a bike, there's nothing you can do much, relatively. Once you're on there, it's like, wow. You know? I mean, he's clearly world champion and he's talented. Yeah. I mean, you think of all the guys that started riding motorbikes to rise to the top. It's not a bad trick, is it?
Yeah.
I mean,
but then you get guys like Gardner, then Casey Stoner, who tried supercars, and was it just because he couldn't get the hang of it, or was it just a different beast? Oh, by the time I get the generations, cars have changed.
Things have evolved a lot, but he might not adapt to it quite as well. Yeah. And just keep in mind, the Ducati, as bad as it was, might not have been nowhere near the animal Honda was. Yeah.
Yeah. Ducatis are known to, well, back then they were
known to be dogs.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
He's probably the only bloke to win a world championship on one until recently. Yeah. Right? And obviously they're good now because everybody wants one, right? Yeah. But at that stage they certainly weren't. Plenty of people tried afterwards and kept falling down the road, didn't they? Yeah. Sort of thing.
Rossi jumped on one too, couldn't he? He couldn't get the hang of it, Valentino Rossi, yeah.
Exactly. So clearly they weren't easy, but probably things have evolved a long way since then. Who knows? Like, some people adapt to other things better than others.
Yeah.
My personal experience with bike riders, like motorbike riders generally, is they adapt pretty easy. Like, I ran a Formula Ford guy who used to race MotoGP, whatever it was called those days, a bloke called Dave Stanley.
Yep.
And in a Formula Ford, he should have won the championship. We had a couple of hiccups, but he should have won it. He was clearly the best bloke, right? And he was quite an old guy. He was 40.
Yep.
But he was very calm. Like, he's like, oh yeah.
Is this national or state?
It was national series.
Okay, and he was 40 at the time. Yeah, okay.
Is there something that the bikes teach that the cars don't? That's why they can adapt easy?
I think you can live on the ragged edge a lot easier.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, sometimes Wayne got sucked into some things that you wouldn't think he would, like oil on the road. Like, you'd think with a bike rider that was sudden death. But other times he was very perceptive, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like there's a lot happening and it happens pretty quick, and they certainly don't have any trouble with it happening too quick for them.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm sure they're used to a lot more forward planning because a bike doesn't react. And what's worse, if you make it react, you're on the road before you can do anything about it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a certain amount more mental thought goes into riding a bike, like especially that kind of bike, but any bike.
Switches the brain on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've learnt a lot, and we could literally have other episodes.
I just have one question. We had some young people we met at Bathurst who are all up-and-coming engineers. They were interning there in mechanics and engineering. Do you have any advice for the ones coming through in today's time and wanting to get into the motorsport industry, whether it's some were saying they wanted to be here in supercars eventually, some in F1, Indy, or is there something that is there advice also that they should just watch out for, prepare for? Is it knowing what to expect from drivers? Is it something on the job that they need to be aware of?
You need to be aware of the fact that you will have to give everything of yourself, everything. There will be no other life, right? Like, when you go into Formula One or you go anywhere else, like, there is nothing left. Like, that is your life. There is no other life, right? And you won't be overpaid. So unless you want to do it bad and want to be involved in it, do something different.
Yeah.
Right, you know, it's that simple. Really, like, my son doesn't do it.
And
it's not because he wouldn't be capable.
Yeah.
It's just that he got offered jobs from various places and he got offered very little money. Like, and he's the first bloke in our family ever go to university, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty proud of that. And he certainly didn't waste his time.
What did he study there?
Engineering.
Yep. Okay.
He now works with the defence contractor. The last project was a guided missile defence system for ships.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Which they've sold to America and a few other places. And the current one, I don't know. It's involved 5 months of security clearance.
Yep.
And I deliberately don't ask him.
Yeah, I understand.
Because do I need to know? No, I don't need to know. Does he know I'm interested in it? Of course he knows I'm interested in it, right?
Yeah.
So, but it just puts him on a spot. It's like when Dave Couchy, who's a very good friend, was working at 888. I don't talk to him about race car stuff because it's a breach of confidence.
Yeah, I understand.
Like the first thing that Ludo says to me when he takes Couchy, "Oh, you're sending me a spy, are you?" No, I'm not sending you a spy. And then I get rolling 15 minutes later. "Oh, you got the spy in the camp anyway." What, you don't think Gary Bailey knows enough or what?
Yeah, right.
Like, I know plenty of people who work there already. It's not like it's the first one.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So, So my advice is, be sure you really want to do it badly because you have to be 100%. Like when I first went to HRT, fortunately, the blokes that worked for me then are still my friends, right?
Yeah.
But, man, we worked hard. Like we worked, like a fellow Adam Up was 140 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I pulled up at a set of lights on Ferntree Gully Road and I actually went to sleep. I woke up, this bloke was tooting at me and I'd crept out because it was an automatic. I crept out in the middle of the intersection. This bloke was pulled up at my door.
Yeah.
This is an 80k zone both ways. And I didn't know where I was when I woke up.
Yeah.
Holy shit, yeah.
So it's like, like we had friends over the road from where we were, the house we had, right? And they were school teachers. And they'd seen Lynn and Rob and Catherine. Didn't know who I was.
Yep.
So she said, "Can you have Sunday off because we're going over the road to a barbecue?" Oh, yeah. So I declared a lay day. And they're looking at me a bit, the husband, and he's looking at me a bit odd, and he's like, what's up? And he said, who are you? And I said, well, the husband and the father. I think I am. And he's like, where do you live? I'm like, it's down the hill there, over the road. And he's like, you come home? I said, yeah, pretty much every day, except when we go away to race meeting.
Yeah.
This was 6 months down the road. He didn't know I lived there.
Yeah, right. Because you're always away at a race meeting.
Because I was because I always left before he got up and was home after he'd gone to bed. Like the hours are just ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
But we did win Bathurst, and you want to win Bathurst. That's what it costs you.
Yeah, it's a true passion. It's the same as the industry is similar to creative. It's blood, sweat, and tears.
Exactly.
You work I was up to midnight last night editing. I think Dan, when he got into this because he loves his podcast, but I think he realized with creative quite quickly, he's like, no one wants to pay you, and the hours are ridiculous. I said, because you love it, this is why you still get up every day and do it.
And most entertainment industries are driven the same way, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Your advice is if you want to do it bad, then fine, but be sure you want to do it bad because it's going to use all of you.
Yeah. No, that's good advice for people to know.
People said to me, you're in it for a long time. Do you miss it? I'm like, I miss the people. I miss the competition. But as I said originally, I'm too old for that shit. And my wife was doing it. She was doing the catering at Brad's, and she's 2 years younger than me.
Yep.
It's hard work. It's not an overstaffing problem, trust me.
Yeah.
It's flat out. A typical race meeting, right? You get out of bed at 4:30 Wednesday morning at Brad's, right? Go to the workshop, dump your car, everybody gets in little buses, we all go to the airport. They do a bit of a shuttle. Get on your airplane, go where you're going. In my case, because Lindy did the catering, I helped set up the catering first job, right? Because she's got to make lunch, right? Yep. So then she's got to do a bit of shopping, make lunch. Then I go and do the engineering trailer, a few other things.
Yeah.
And that pretty much sees Wednesday up, but it's a pretty long day by the time you get all that done, right? Yeah. So then the next day you're into the normal routine. You're doing the engineering stuff. You're doing the track walk and the meetings and the pre-brief and the debriefs and all that rubbish. And the first time you actually stop is Sunday night when you get to the airport. It's like, you've had enough, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like and it's pretty full on. And everybody in the industry is doing it. I'm not the only one. Everybody that works in it's working that hard. They're flat out, you know.
That's definitely what you see around the track.
Yeah. It's the same for everybody. That Bathurst I just did was a relatively walk in the park for me. I've never been through one where, like I said, if it wasn't cloudy, we'd actually go home in daylight.
Yeah.
It's just unheard of. Quite often you go all night.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right.
It's just
what it is.
It's just the nature of the game, you know.
Yeah.
Do I regret doing it? No.
Yeah.
Without even doing it deliberately, I've lived through probably the best era of motor racing we've ever seen and not even known it. I've seen Jim Clark drive. I've seen Jochen Rindt drive.
Yeah.
I've seen Kevin Bartlett when he was at his peak.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a lot of motor racing over a long period.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to Bathurst as a spectator when they were Monaros and GT Cortinas and working from around about when I actually drove an Escort there a couple of times.
Yep.
In the early 80s. I've done driving. They're not an outright cars necessarily, but I've actually had the opportunity to drive in the race and get involved in it. When it was very early on, and obviously I've been involved in it full on since about 1987 or something every time.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks, Rob, for coming on the podcast. I definitely want to get you on other times, but it's been amazing learning and listening from you.
We haven't even talked about any Formula Ford stuff like this.
We talked a bit. About
plenty of that. Yeah. When I've been doing a bit of scrutineering for the historic people, you know.
Yeah.
And obviously the Group A blokes are like, no, we bring him over here because that's people associate me with touring cars.
Yeah.
Because I was doing touring cars for so long. But Frank Adamson keeps saying, no, you won't get him because his heart's in Formula Ford, which it is. Formula Ford, I thought, was a thing for the time, and it was really good for the time. It was, when we were doing it, you could actually build your own car in a shed at Greenacre and go and win a race. You couldn't do that now. Now it's gone past that. Now you've got people at very professional shows running cars for people.
Yeah.
So you need to bring a big bag of gold, which is that better or worse? I think it's worse, but that'll be a biased opinion from the angle I came from.
Yep.
Right? But I would have very much liked my son to learn all the things I learned, to build his own car, to sit there with a piece of chalk and a string on the floor and work out where to put the roll centres.
Want to hear more? Each week we will share the hottest clips from our guest interviews on YouTube. But to hear the full episode, make sure to subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast platform.